When it comes to Freya in terms of power, it's very difficult to rank her because she has a lot of battle feats, but not a lot of definitive power feats, other than obviously one really powerful feat, which I'll get into later on. I've often stated where I would rank Freya in terms of just witches in both my power rankings of Bonnie and Hope video, but where would I rank Freya in terms of every single character in the Vampire Diaries universe, and why? Firstly, for Freya, I would split her power characterizations into 3, and go through them from weakest to strongest. This will be base Freya, linked Freya, and ancestor channeled Freya. A lot of people believe that Freya never really lost her powers built up from the slumber spell that when she was actually linked with Dahlia, but I will explain later on why I believe she actually did.
I'll channel Lucian. The older the vampire, the better the battery.
We're gonna buy her some time, keep the Strix occupied.
Wait, so you want me here holding hands with the leftover sister while you take the 2 toddlers and tackle the Strix? You must be joking!
That was impressive.
Oh, I work better with quiet.
Base Freya, although the weakest of the 3 versions of herself, is still ridiculously powerful, mainly because she's a firstborn Mikaelson witch and an incredibly skilled witch that was trained by Dahlia, one of the most powerful and skilled witches of all time. This is to the point that if we were only going by base powers, no additional power source, she would easily be the 4th most powerful witch of all time. And also, if we exclude the Hollow, Dahlia, and also Hope, mainly because Hope mostly relies on her physical capabilities rather than her magic, I would say Freya is the deadliest witch to come up against, and in her most powerful form, Freya is second only to the Hollow in terms of magical combat capabilities. This is mainly because Freya has the ingenuity of Esther and Dahlia and the power of Bonnie rolled into one being. This is why I tend to dub Freya as a full-on battle witch. But why do I think she ranks that highly in base? Although it's hard to compare her to others, it's still pretty obvious why she's ranked that highly, and most of her feats are usually battle and magic skill feats, but in terms of power, there's 3 that comes to mind. Firstly, in season 3, Freya was able to do an astral projection to a different continent and proceeded to one-shot multiple Strix members, including Io. And finally, Freya was able to use the slumber spell on her siblings and herself, linking their life force to Klaus and creating the Sean brother shards all in one sitting whilst dying. So yeah, I don't see many witches in base being able to do those 2 things, especially the second one, which she did without channeling, and I would put her as the 4th most powerful witch in base. If you are wondering who are the 3 witches I have above her in terms of base powers, there would be Hope for very obvious reasons, Bonnie for 1, 2, 3, and 4 reasons. Before you come for me because of the Hellfire feat, yes, I know there's a massive argument on whether she channeled or not to finally push Hellfire back, but there is no argument for her channeling here or here. And finally, you have Ketsia, who was able to outright rematerialize her soul without channeling anything, something not even the Hollow could do, well, at least not in her spirit form. She could do that later on after resurrecting herself. Also, Ketsia's calcified blood alone is comparable in power to a celestial event, so there's really not much of an argument who's top 3, but Freya easily gaps everyone else.
You're all so mean. Like the mouse that torments the cat in those cartoons. I think you're the ones who need to be punished. The others were just ignorant bullies. But you're a smart girl, powerful, and yet you still betrayed a friend.
Immortal Freya or linked Freya is often seen as the most powerful extent, but although I understand why people actually believe this, it is not even close, nowhere near. Now, like I said earlier on, people do assume she never lost his power, but we know she did, as one of the most powerful spells she did was being able to resurrect Finn after he got exploded by Elijah. And she did this by putting his soul into a talisman and then heal Vincent's body and transfer Finn's soul back into Vincent, hence resurrecting him in the process. Although it isn't the most powerful resurrection spell, as we could tell by how much she was rushing, she didn't want his soul in the ancestral realm, or the other side, as that would require a lot more power to pull off. However, this is still a powerful enough feat that she was incapable of performing in season 4 after Elijah dies without channeling. Now, in terms of her most powerful feats, there are a few that comes to mind, like she effortlessly breaks the barrier around the fallen asylum, a barrier that stood for a century that kept a dozen or so witches trapped within. She also turned Esther into a flock of birds, killing her instantly. But by far the most powerful feat she actually did was her being able to locate Hope and breaking through a reinforced cloaking spell from a great distance away. Bear in mind, Rebekah said this about that said spell.
Safe. It'll take 100 witches to break the cloaking spell.
Rebekah may or may not be exaggerating due to her having little knowledge about magic, but it's likely not far off, which is still ridiculously powerful. Some say this makes her powerful enough to kill originals. I don't think so, mainly due to the very obvious sheer gap in power between her and Dahlia, meaning that if Freya alone can, then Dahlia should be able to one-shot originals with a wave of her hands. But it's obvious Dahlia can't, and it's somewhat implied she can't kill originals of a wild stake, so Freya would be far off that level of power. But I still think she would still be powerful enough to be placed above Harvest Davina and be placed as the 6th most powerful witch in this form. But anyways, onto her most powerful form.
No, please, you'll break the circle. Please stop, please don't break the
Now this is by far her most powerful form, although she really only had it for less than a day. But why is this form so powerful? Well, like its name suggests, Freya channeled every witch in the ancestral realm through channeling Davina. With this power, she was able to avert the upgraded original Lucian back into a regular vampire. And as Lucian's spell was made as a replica to Esther's spell with some alterations of course, this means that Freya would have possessed enough power to be able to actually kill an original. A statement only made directly for one character, that being Bonnie, and also implied for 2 others through separate statements, that being the Hollow and Hope. Meaning that Freya with this power will be in the top 4 most powerful witches of all time. Her placement is rather hard to actually determine and very arguable, but in my opinion she'll be somewhere around the Hollow in her resurrected form when she was at her full power. However, she would still not be more powerful than the version that took over Hope's body, and she would also be below Hellfire Bonnie, mainly because Freya had to use all of the power to avert Lucian, and Bonnie in that scene would either be probably dozens of times more powerful than the power released from the violent depths of 100 Bennett witches, and she would be this powerful in base scene as she pushed back Hellfire that had traveled 7 miles, which is about 1,000 times further than it did the first time, and would be at its full power, or alternatively she would be channeling her entire bloodline. So in either way you view that scene, whether she channeled or not, she would still be above Freya. And she would also be below Hope via Loric's statements of her actually possessing more power than anyone could ever have. So in short, Freya will be placed 4th in my all-time witch rankings, at least in terms of maneuverable power or power you can actually walk around with. This doesn't mean that Freya won't beat them in a fight, because none of them are immortal at their most powerful extent except Hope. And Freya has both the power and skill to beat any of them, but when it comes to just power, yeah, just no. Like, I think there's still a gap between the top 3 and Freya. At least if you go by canonical sense, because like I said in the Hope video, a 7-year-old Hope was not too far off from the Hollow in terms of power, and the Hollow took over her body, adding both their powers together. The Hollow was already stated to be even more powerful than all of the ancestors combined. And then you have Bonnie, who, like I said in her video, she did what is quite easy the most powerful feat done by a witch in the entire verse. Hope is the only problem because she doesn't really have that many powerful feats in terms of magic, but Loric's statements and the fact that she was that powerful at 7 sort of puts her above all of them. But where would Freya's overall ranking be? She would be 8th if I'm counting tied placements, like I have a joint 2nd, a joint 5th, and a joint 6th. The reason why she's somewhat lower is less about power and more about hacks, like the ridiculous hacks of a character that psychics are. Freya doesn't really have much of a hard counter like the witches above her does. The only witch above her that doesn't have a hard counter to psychics is Hope, but she's extremely powerful in every way. And then you have the Hollow, who has a spirit form that you can argue can technically wouldn't have a physical brain to manipulate, but obviously that wouldn't work on Cade, who can manipulate whole spirits. And finally, you have Bonnie, who is a psychic witch hybrid, and we saw her being able to actually push the most powerful psychic Cade out of her mind and hide doorways or dimensions from him. But anyways, I did a similar video for Bonnie, and if you're interested, then click on the video that's on screen now.